Welcome, everyone. You're listening to the ImPerfect Podcast. I'm Kathy.
And I'm Kennedy. Join us on this week's episode as we discuss intriguing topics and people of interest that will inspire us to explore all of the unique pieces of ourselves.
We are all imperfectly perfect.
We're glad you're here.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our next episode of the ImPerfect Podcast. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. We had a guest on the show recently that thought it'd be kind of cool if Kennedy and I sat down and had a more relaxed conversation. We each have our respective drinks here with us, and we're just going to tone it down. We don't really have any big agenda, no life lessons or what have you for today's show, but we do a lot of informational sessions, life skill kind of things, just general interest, and also a lot of interviews of other people. But we often share ourselves but don't dedicate a whole show to maybe what we are thinking. So going to kind of go off the path today and give that a go and see how it goes. If it's your first time with us, this one could be a flop. So if you're watching it and you don't like it, go pick another one.
Yeah, there might be more imperfect podcast, educational video that might be better suited. I don't know that this would be the best one to start off with, or maybe it is going to be the best. Who knows?
And
But
that's the great part. We don't even know what we're doing. So we'll see how it goes. It might be great. Who knows?
Yeah, so like Mom was saying, just to show, like, our personality shows obviously a little bit in our episodes that we do more educational and fact-based, because we have a lot of topics that we feel are very interesting and play into our goal and vision with the podcast. But a topic that we felt would be a good, let's show a bit of our, like, just, off the cuff and have a conversation between each other and show a bit more of our personality would be quite literally generational differences. And funny enough, the way that this conversation came up is as we prepare episodes and we're looking up different things on the internet and, oh, this fact, and, oh, this would be an interesting topic to talk about, or I've experienced this, let's talk a bit more about this. We're preparing a document and discussing amongst ourselves, what are we going to discuss in the episode and whatnot. And what happens often, and what happened quite a while ago, is how I was like, Mom, like, why do you put so many spaces after your period? And she's like,
You
what
mean
do you
like
mean?
the two that are supposed to be there?
Right. And she's like, well, I put 2 spaces after a period like you're supposed to. And I'm like, you're supposed to put 1 space after a period. And she's like, no, you're supposed to put 2. And so hence the title of this episode, Double Spaces. And it made us realize there's a whole topic here just because there's so many different things that just evolve through time, one of which happens to be double spaces after a period. Like, we don't do that anymore. So that was often like a, yes, there is, no, there's not. So we
And
thought we'd kind of like take that topic and roll with it today.
well, and it's not just the double spaces after a period. I notice now that a lot of times you don't put a period. What is that?
Well, if you have bullet points, there's certain rules.
It's different rules than I learned. I forget the name of the book. It looked like a hardcover dictionary in university that of, the grammar rules that we had to follow. And I guess it's an entirely different series than perhaps you read when you went through because, yeah, stuff's not the same anymore.
No, and the funny thing with you saying like a dictionary or hardcover book, that was still part of my generation. I don't know that my sister's generation even used a dictionary. Is that even a thing anymore? Or do you just look
Well,
up on the internet, what is the adjective of this? Or what's the synonym of this word? Or
well,
is this a noun? Or
I think it was grade 5. She had to get, regular middle school supplies. And dictionary was on the list, but I don't think it was opened all year. And then, yeah, it kind of got thrown in the pile of we don't need this anymore.
Hmm,
And yeah, you get the world at your fingertips, right? So I
yeah.
think it's kind of the past.
Yeah, and just on another thing with punctuation, another thing that Mom and I have, I say fought about, but it's kind of what are you talking about? That's not a thing. Are Oxford commas. That's very much a thing for what I was taught in school, which is if you have a list of 3 or more things in a sentence, you put a comma before the and on the last thing on the list. And Mom's like, no, you don't.
Well, there's different comma rules anyway, or there was. You'd put, apples, comma, oranges, comma, and bananas.
No,
So,
you put comma and bananas.
yeah, that's what I said.
No, that's not what you said.
That's what I said. Apples, comma, oranges, comma, and banana.
Okay, yes, sorry, my mistake.
So do you do that differently?
No, that's true. It's just, okay, well, maybe our rules are the same, but when you decide to write something, it's not at all that.
Oh, well, it can't be held to such high grammatical
Right.
punctuation standards.
I expect textbook worthy text messages from you from now on. But yeah, so I also I did look up quickly. I was like, it's just interesting because I didn't even know there's all these different categorizations for different generations. And I didn't actually know if I was a millennial or a Gen Z. So just to quickly list them off. So baby boomers, they were considered to be dedicated workers who value visibility. So that would be someone like my grandmother. So mom's mom. Generation X would be considered as independent and well-educated individuals. So that would be mom. That's a pretty good description, eh? So I could live with that. Millennials, which is what I initially thought I was, is a collaborative and impact-oriented generation. So that's not me, I guess, because I was born in 97, and that's the cutoff of Generation Z, which is an optimistic yet risk-averse group. So that would be me. And lastly, Gen X, which is typically described as resourceful, independent, and good at maintaining work-life balance. So that would be like my sister's age group. So it's just kind of interesting how the different generations are classified differently based on experience and how they were brought up and what they view the workforce as, things like that.
I'm just reading through here and seeing if I see like a slippery slope from where
Does
it
it get
was
worse? Well, and
down.
here I was being, typical sister, and I read Gen X, which would be my sister, and I'm like, resourceful, independent, and good at meaning work-life balance. And I'm like, okay, I don't know about that one. But anyways.
Yeah, well, the big difference I see is the baby boomers were dedicated workers. Then it turns to my generation where we're well educated and independent. And then you guys are you a millennial? No, you're Gen
No,
Z.
I'm not. And I
The,
thought I
the,
was.
the in between you and I, or me and you, or whatever, would be, yeah, it's more impact oriented. Okay. And you guys are like pie in the sky, but you don't want to take any risks.
Mm,
And yeah, it does kind of have step, a step stare down effect, like when you look at them that
it's
way.
true. And arguably as well, like you could see it as a step up, just in different
What do you
perspective.
mean?
No, but like I'm saying that, I think also in those descriptions I was saying it kind of there's more value put on yourself rather than your workplace is how I'm seeing it. So it's kind of like this shift of I come first and then my job comes second, whereas maybe boomers, Gen X would be more of, okay, my work is my everything.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's just generalized terms too, right? So
Yeah. More identifiers. Yeah.
yeah, and
So what?
no, you go ahead.
No, I was just going to move on, but you had something else to say on
I was
this.
moving on too, so you move on.
Let's move on. I was just going to say, like, what else is there that are differences between the generations? That might be something interesting to talk about. Like,
Mm.
think of,
I
um,
read I read an article one time that said that apparently, and I don't know what yours is specifically, but for my generation, I can't even remember the article or what it was saying or what it was aimed towards, but it was basically that my generation couldn't understand the concept of a milkman. And then it said that my sister's generation couldn't understand the concept of being lost. And so I guess what it's trying to compare here is that milkmen, people who drop milk off at your door, like my generation couldn't understand that concept, but yours could.
Yeah,
And
well, why can't you? Because it's like when you call for skip the dishes, it's the
and I can
same.
understand it in that way, but it just doesn't make sense to me that you would have milk delivered to your door. I mean, I can understand it. It's not like I'm like, huh, I don't get it. It's more of a,
But
it doesn't
people,
make sense why someone would do that.
well, I guess it kind of does though, because now look at all the home delivery services of groceries
It's
are the
becoming much
people
more of a
that
thing.
are, well, yeah, entirely. And, those people that think it'd be a good idea to order a McDonald's ice cream or a
For
Dairy Queen
delivery.
ice cream and get it delivered, like you're gonna end up with milk soup when you get. I don't eat that. I don't understand your generation that they would think that was a good idea, because anybody can figure that's not going to turn out well.
Well, right. And I mean, I guess it's just trying to point out that there's such a, not a divide, but there's such a space between how things change. And like with my sister's generation, it's that they can't understand loss, being lost. I mean, they know what the word lost means. I'm sure they've been lost in the mall before or whatever when they're shopping with their friends or I don't know, playing whatever gym game out in the woods and whatever. But I think the
Kids still
point
go
it's
in the
trying to,
woods?
what's that?
Do kids still go in the woods?
Right. And anyway, but I think the point is that they all have cell phones now. My generation at, middle to high school age, like phones were just becoming a thing. And
Mhm.
now for my sister's generation, it's everyone has one. So you can never be lost because, hey, you have GPS.
Right.
So, and
Yeah.
unless you had a handy dandy map in your back pocket or whatever,
Like Dora the Explorer.
right? That's what I thought of too, actually, but I was like, I'm not going to
Here's
sing
the
that song.
map.
Yeah. Backpack, backpack.
Right. So I guess the whole phone thing, that's a subject in itself. Like, yeah, I grew up in a time where that was your only option, was a phone call. And it was really difficult for me to get into the whole text thing. But now I'm just like the rest of you is, and I'd almost rather text with someone because you can do it on your own time.
Mm.
Or, if it's something you can't deal with now, or you need more information to give an answer.
Or you want to have time to think about how you're going to answer.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, it's kind of interesting too. Just the thought of, you think of times back when, like, when you would go to the movies with your friends. And this was like my age group was kind of the cutoff of where this happened. So you would call your friends on the landline, the phone hooked up to the wall, and you'd go, hey, you want to meet me at the movies for 7 o'clock? They're playing whatever, whatever. And they say, sure, see you there. You hang up, and magically, you don't hang out or you don't talk to your friend until you go to the movie at 7 o'clock, and they happen to be there. And meanwhile, like kids
Oh,
nowadays, and even myself, like everyone's like this now, it's just become common now that you
right.
kind of text in between or you send a funny meme before you end up at the movie or,
Yeah. Are
hey,
you here
hey,
yet? I'm in the,
yeah,
yeah, I'm in the parking lot.
tickets are going fast. You better come in. Like all of that sort of jibber jabber in between. Like that was never a thing before. It was just you'd call your friend and you meet them there. But now it's so
Yeah.
much in between kind of stuff.
I've thought of that a lot, like when you were just, getting the age where you could leave the house and that sort of thing. And the fear now that's in parents, that before it was like, okay, Saturday morning, get up, watch cartoons, had something to eat, and now I'm gone,
Yeah.
at the age of 12. And I often wonder, like, were not necessarily my parents, but my generation's parents, were they irresponsible because they didn't know where we were, right? We'd go play in a puddle, and then I can remember going in culverts. We'd walk through the woods to the neighbor's house.
Or were you guys more well equipped and had more common sense back
I
then?
don't, yeah, yeah, in some ways, but in other ways, I can think of stuff that my friends and I did that
Well, you still live to tell the tale.
I know, but really it could have gone the other way in a number of cases, like, let's have a campfire in the woods. What a
Right.
great idea. Or, just some of the dumb things I did growing up as an adolescent. Like we'd walk into the village, hop on the local bus that was passing by, go to the nearest town. I don't know. I can remember playing with friends in shopping carts, in the parking lot, and then trying to get in as underage in bars. And sometimes we get in.
Right.
It just
And
seems
that's just would not be a thing unless you had a fake ID now.
right. And now I can remember the first few times that were out walking around the village. It's like, here's my cell phone, and I've already keyed the number in case you need to get
The
a hold
cell
of
phone with the antenna that you pull out and I'm not
it.
kidding.
Yeah. What do they call those? Not ghetto phones.
Oh, they're pretty ghetto.
Anyway, yeah, it's so strange. Like I wonder how we ever made plans or we ever got home or you'd pick it. We had this thing, you'd pick up the payphones, which are a thing of the past. I don't even know if you can find them anymore.
I
And
saw one up at the Tim Hortons up there, and I actually said to my boyfriend the other day, I was like, I wonder if that thing still works.
yeah, right. So no, I can remember there was like this certain, you'd pick it up and you'd use the operator to make a collect call so it would record your voice. And
Mm,
basically you'd just call and record like, hey mom, we're done, come pick us up, bye.
yeah.
And so you wouldn't get charged and she would know when to come get you. But yeah.
Yeah. And even that just makes me think of dial up. Like Emmy doesn't have any idea what that is. But it was very much a thing for me playing the
Yeah.
disc game that you got in the cereal box and playing that in the computer or going on the Polly Pocket game online. And I have to make a phone call, Kennedy. You're gonna have to get off the computer real quick because it goes beep.
Right.
And Emmy's like, what is that even? I don't understand. They're two separate things, aren't they?
Yeah.
Right. So it's funny too, like we were just brainstorming before, and another funny thing is just the fact that the concept of taking pictures is so just relaxed now. Oh, here, somebody got a phone, here, take a selfie, done. But before it was very much like you develop photos
Oh, it
and
was such an investment.
you have to wait to see if any of your pictures showed out well. Like if they showed
And
up,
every
okay.
every every one you'd think, oh, that must have been a good one, I'm pretty sure. But then you'd have to wait for 6 months or
Right.
whatever
And oh,
for
right,
the
here's my pictures from
yeah,
my birthday a year ago. Yeah.
you had to scroll ahead and then click, and I don't know, there was 24 or 30. I think you could buy 12, 24, or 36 in a roll, and then you had to wait to get to the end of the roll. And if there wasn't a lot of exciting things happening in your life, you'd take a picture of your foot and just to get to the end so you could take it in and pay money and wait, I don't know, a couple weeks till you went and got them back, and to find out the whole thing was like underexposed, so none of them turned out, or
Yep. And
half your face, or
it's funny too. It made me think when we went to our first trip to Disney, I remember that you and Dad got me a couple of these
yeah,
cameras and
yeah,
you said to me, okay, you have two of these for the whole 7-day trip. Don't
right,
waste the camera on the first day because you won't be able to take any pictures with the characters that you want to take and
right,
whatever. And I did exactly as you said. Oh, here's a picture of my foot, and here's a picture of, oh yeah, the castle, but it's half cut off because I wasn't paying attention because Pluto's over here and I'm distracted. And then we got the pictures back. Or I think I totally used up one camera on one day, but it was a huge realization for me, like, okay, damn, I have 6 more days and I have one camera left.
right, yeah, no,
And
it was
now with cell phone, it's like you can take infinite photos. Well, not mom's
right.
phone, because mom's phone is old and needs to be
Don't
replaced.
out me. Don't out me.
And she needs to delete pictures to take more pictures because her phone's so full. But anyway.
I've passed that point. I can't even delete enough stuff to let me take a picture. So I have to go into a certain app that people use on a regular basis, and it will let me take a picture.
Yeah.
So then that's the only way. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get a picture message from mom sometimes and she'll be like, "Don't mind me. Just need to take a picture and I don't have space on my phone."
Yeah, that's kind of true.
I'd like to shift the gears a little bit here though. I wanted to bring up to you, do you know what quiet quitting is?
Quitting while you're quiet.
Funny. So anyone my age and maybe even my sister's age, in and around this age, would know that quiet quitting, the exact definition from Investopedia, is actually doing the minimum requirements of one's job and putting in no more time, effort, or enthusiasm than absolutely necessary. So basically, we've gotten to a point in our society where people have realized that they've been taken advantage of. For example, if you work an office job and you have a set amount of tasks for the day, and you happen to be a faster worker than, whoever's sitting beside you, and you finish your tasks, and so you just kind of relax for the rest of the day, answer the few emails that come in or whatever. But we've gotten to the point now where people are like, okay, the boss realizes I finished my stuff early and then says, here, can you also finish so-and-so's job because they're slower than you and you're a fast worker and I know I can rely on you. And so what quiet quitting is that people come to the realization that they're not standing for that anymore. And so quiet quitting is quite literally that they do the bare minimum, which is exactly what their job description is. They don't do anything more or anything less. And what happens is it's kind of like they're easy and quiet exit out the door because the boss realizes, like, they get frustrated because they had been taking advantage of this person for so long and didn't realize that, their pay didn't match the work that they were doing. And so eventually just kind of, it's an
So
easy way out the door.
it's like a passive aggressive action against your employer.
Yes.
It's just
Yes.
kind of like I'm filling the seat and I'll do like the enough to keep my job, but I'm not doing anything extra. Is that
Pretty
it?
much. Yeah. And the thing is it's becoming more common. I actually
Well,
see it on TikTok all the time that people actually record themselves as they're doing an act of quiet quitting, which is they can see that their boss is walking towards them. They'll set up their camera and they'll be
yeah.
like clickety clackety clack, and the person will come up, "Hey, how you doing? How's your work going for the day? Here, do you mind doing this?" And they'd say, um, "That's not my job." So I see it all the time on TikTok now.
Yeah, and it's hard to know how much of that is legit and how much is people staging things. But
Oh, and I know people personally that do that.
oh,
It's
really?
kind of a
I mean,
big movement almost, you could call it.
I could see getting very frustrated at being rewarded by getting your job done with more work that's
Right.
kind of backwards. But and that would get pretty old pretty quick. But at the same time, I can't imagine just like digging my heels in and saying that's not my job description. But
Well, and I'm a people pleaser, so I don't know how people manage to keep up that position, but I guess it's kind of too, like we were talking at the beginning, that some people, their job is their identity, but for some people it's just a job. But it
yeah.
seems that the movements now are leading towards that people just want, I say people, some people, a lot of people just want a 9 to 5. And when they leave their job, they don't want to have to worry about their job after they're home. And maybe in Grammy's time, it would have been something where it was very common to stay late for work because they wanted to work harder in hopes of maybe getting a 25-cent raise 6 months from now.
Mhm. Or
So
being even kept on to work because, that wasn't, if you were late.
competitive. And it's not competitive nowadays. It's, oh my gosh, we need you.
Right, right. So you can basically show up at some jobs and do, like you said, the bare minimum or even sometimes less than that and continue to keep your job because yeah, the way the market is right now.
Yeah. Even the workplace has changed a lot in the last little while. Like so many different things. Like just there's these, I forget how he worded it. My boyfriend brought it up the other day. There's like these diversity quotas or something that you need to hire X amount of women, X amount of men, X
You
amount of Caucasian, X amount of
you
to
mean
keep.
for government jobs, larger corporations, or everybody's kind of trending that?
Well, it's not that it's a requirement of people, but to have a better viewed company, it's kind of seen as, an advertising or marketing ploy almost of
Mhm.
we are a diversity, inclusive, whatever company, and we employ a
Right.
1/4% Caucasian, a 1/4%
Almost like a
whatever.
draw, like you'll be accepted
Yeah.
here kind of thing, like a social club.
Yeah. So many just little things like that. It's just a lot in the last while, I find.
Yeah, things are changing very quickly from, you know, I think of certain mindsets that I had about certain things, and in the last 3 years, everything's kind of backwards, upside down, and things that I might not have believed before, it's kind of like, I don't know anymore. And things that I did believe, I'm kind of like, I don't know about that anymore. And
Yeah.
I think I'm not alone in that. I've had quite a few conversations with people that are seeing things quite differently than they used to.
And I find we've become closer together in some respects, but we've also become divided in many others,
Yeah,
just depending on the context. I find the sense of community, um, compared to the past versus now is completely different. And like not necessarily negative or positive, but just different for both.
how do you mean?
I don't know how to say it without offending people. And I say that just because I don't want my opinions to be
That might
viewed.
change.
Right. No, but okay, so community, like you said before, you could let your kid run out in the street and hang out with their friends till almost dark, and you didn't have to worry about where your kids were.
Hmm,
You very much have to worry about that nowadays, but community now is not viewed so much as the 10 closest houses around yours.
that's true.
It's
That's
more
weird. I never thought of that.
it's more of a we're part of a team and fight the power kind of thing. Like I identify with this group, I identify with this one, I
But they're
and
not my neighbors necessarily,
right.
or they're not all people that I go to this particular group with, or that. Yeah, that's, I never thought of that until you just said that. Growing up for me, I was fortunate to live in a community that, you know, when there was a baby or a wedding, or people still for the most part came together and supported each other in that. And yeah, now community is different because everybody's sort of sitting behind a screen or belonging to these particular groups. Yeah, you're right. I never even thought of that.
And
Community, the definition is entirely different.
not that it's good or bad in either way. I mean, there's pros and cons to both, but technology has really opened up a lot of opportunity for us. Like right now, the podcast,
Yeah.
well, this is a community,
Yeah.
but this wouldn't have been a community or even a concept to even consider as being an option during Grammy's time. Grammy's community where was the 10 people that live closest to her.
Right. And this would only be considered a community now well, in her day, it would be having somebody over for tea, right?
Mm.
Except you're drinking a cooler,
Hmm.
but that's how people did this before, right?
Yeah. And just the way you meet people is different nowadays. Like, okay, not to go off on a tangent, but dating. You very rarely meet someone in a coffee shop anymore. You very rarely see someone and ask for their number anymore. It's very much the apps that you use about, oh, he looks kind of cute. Oh, and
I don't get that swipe left, and I don't, that is something I totally don't get. Or these. 2-minute relationships that happen at the nearest truck stop or whatever.
Yeah.
I have a hard time getting my head around that. That's a real difference.
Well, and I don't necessarily understand hookup culture per se, but even so, just dating, like a lot of my first dates were meeting people on apps and hey, they're kind of cute and oh, they like cats too. Cool. I might meet them for coffee. And then if coffee goes okay,
Mhm.
you might go for dinner next time or whatever. But yeah, just different ways to communicate with people, different ways to make connections. It's all very different.
Mm.
Yeah, just society as a whole. I'm trying to think of like even eating out has become such a like, oh, got my daily Starbies or whatever. But I don't know, do you ever remember going out for a coffee with your family when you were younger?
With my family.
Yeah, but like I
No,
remember you saying like you guys
that
ate
was
out
very
twice.
uncool.
Right. Well, okay. Okay, noted. I won't go for coffee with you anymore. But
We
I
didn't
remember
we didn't go out to eat. I mean, maybe that was just my family more so than others of the time, but I think pretty much it was a cultural thing that, yeah, I can remember going out when it was my mother's birthday or Mother's Day, so that was her gift that she didn't have to cook, right?
mm,
Or if we happen to be on vacation somewhere and you can only take food for so long before it starts going bad in the old Coleman in the back seat. So yeah, we did.
Coleman.
You know what I mean, right?
I know
The
what you mean,
Coleman.
but that's just funny that you say
Yeah,
that.
yeah. No, stuff is so different. I'm thinking nostalgically now. Like, yeah, we didn't eat out. It was a real treat. And now it's like, oh, let's see if we can line up going to get groceries with eating out somewhere. Like
Right.
it's a mission.
And it's an
Whereas,
outing. And I see there's okay, I keep referencing TikTok, but it's a lot of people will go to buy their groceries and then after the fact they'll get the, favorite food at the end of like sometimes a lot of grocery places will have takeout food on your way out the door. So they'll be showing the TikTok of them walking out with their cart and getting whatever favorite food that they enjoy. And it's an audio on TikTok that goes, it shows them eating it and the audio is, it's like a reward.
it's
So
like a reward.
yeah, but it's this weird voice. It's like a reward.
We're gonna have to do a TikTok about that, aren't we?
I
For the
mean,
show.
probably. It's it's in my back pocket as an idea, that's for sure.
Great, great.
Yeah. So, I'm almost out of a drink, so and, I mean, we've been chatting for a while, but, I guess this is just our personality, and we wanted to show a bit more of ourselves and just have an open discussion about double spaces. That's where it all started, but I
Yeah.
guess the main point is that, we can all learn from each other. And I guess that was part of the motive in starting our podcast is the generational differences in opinions on things.
Mm.
And not realizing how there's so many different perspectives on a particular topic. Like we previously talked about bullying in another episode and how the viewpoint of that is maybe different between how I grew up and how mom grew up and how that's changed even with social media being an extra factor now. And so it's just we learn from each other and yeah.
Okay.
I don't know how else to say that, but it's good to talk to your elders and your youngins and to
Yeah.
have better understanding. And that's the other thing too. I hear a lot of times like there's a lot of motivational speakers that say you need to talk to your kids. You need to talk to your kids because you don't understand what they're going through in the sense that they're growing up in a totally different time. And the same as it's important to talk to your elders because you need to understand how they grew up and you need to grow based on their perspectives as well.
And perspective does change so much. Like, I gotta
Right.
be honest, now I hear some of the struggles that kids go through today, and they're just as real to them as my struggles were when I was growing up, or even my struggles, throughout life. But as an adult, you lose that perspective of all the different dynamics. Plus, it's a completely different world. So, yeah, as adults, guilty of looking at a situation and going like, oh, well, they don't realize it's all going to work out. And that's just a small drop in the bucket, but for them, it's still pretty real. So yeah, to try to keep the perspective. I saw something the other day about how even your generation sends a text and all this jargon that you use, that if I read it, I might as well read Greek because it doesn't make sense, but only your generation and younger would understand it. And I thought, wow, have I, I'm just in my early 50s, and have I lost touch already? Because I have
Mm,
no clue what they're even talking about.
yeah.
So yeah, it's a good idea for sure to stay connected and have these talks back and forth, and maybe us old people can give you some perspective for life too. So
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you for listening again to our podcast, and this being more of just like a candid one and more of a discussion point that we wanted to cover today. And we took advice from a previous guest and decided to get a drink of choice and just chat together and see where
yeah,
it went. So,
I think
um,
there's going to be maybe a few more of these along the way. There's so many things to talk about, like you know all my 80s memories and
oh
stuff like
gosh,
that.
yeah. And it's all about comfortability as well. We grow and we learn with the podcast, so it takes time to become comfortable to just go candidly in front of a camera, let alone in front of a camera. So
For
we
sure.
appreciate those of you that are just tuning in for the first time, although I hope this wasn't the first one you listened to. And for those of
Wasn't so
you,
bad.
it wasn't so bad.
Yeah,
But for those of you that have been here from the beginning, we also appreciate you as well. So
yeah, yeah. It's been
here's
fun
to,
actually. I was really scared, and
I
I
know you
said,
were, she was
Kennedy,
like, I don't know about this.
this doesn't feel safe to me. But now she put a drink in my hand, and
And
here we
she
go.
was okay. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much to everyone, and we will be seeing you next week.
Bye.
If you or someone you know has a unique story to tell, we'd love to hear from you. Email us at theimperfectpodcast@outlook.com.
For more information and how to connect with us on social media, you can visit us at our website, theimperfectpodcast.ca.
And from whichever platform you are listening to this episode, be sure to like, share, and leave us a review. We would really appreciate your feedback. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode.
We look forward to hearing your feedback and seeing you all find that extra joy and embrace your own imperfect.
See you next week.